there's something more about boxing that intrigues me. I get more engagement, more enjoyment, more thrill from watching boxing.
Be careful, because your new relationship with Carl.
I can't. It needs to be broadened, and that's boxing's responsibility. Welcome to Talk Boxing, the Q&A with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. This is where we get to answer the difficult and interesting questions that you pose to us. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe. And of course, keep leaving those questions in the comment section below. But Spence, let's get on with this week's questions.
Yep.
First question, Spence. This is going to be a tricky one for me, actually. From Owen Smith. And you'll see why in a second. Who wins? Prime Calzaghe or Prime Froch?
Well, we're gonna listen. We're gonna split, and we're gonna split ourselves here. I know, like, because of your newfound love relationship with Carl Froch, but that's another section of the show. But let's talk about this. Who wins? I'm gonna go Joe Calzaghe. I think that Joe Calzaghe has got the toughness of Carl Froch, but he's got that little extra bit of boxing IQ, and I just think that Calzaghe would nick a tight decision, but I go with Joe Calzaghe.
When I've seen them both in action, I saw Joe Calzaghe beat Jeff Lacey, which was an incredibly impressive performance.
Yeah.
I watched him fight Chris Eubank, and I've watched Carl Froch. I watched Carl Froch in the first Groves fight in Manchester. I didn't get to see the second one. I watched it on television. I watched most of Carl's fights on television. I saw 2 or 3 of Joe fights in person. If I'm brutally honest, I think it's very difficult to argue about who would win a fight when you've got one guy that's gone his entire career unbeaten. Yeah. For everybody in the division. So did Carl Froch. But
it's what he done in those fights as well. Like when you go back to, like, say, when he boxed Roy Jones at Madison Square Garden, he got floored in that first round. I was commentating that fight. When he didn't just get stunned in that first round.
This is my part of the
let me just tell you, like, I just want to break down this little bit. I want to, because you started going in depth about it, and I only just sort of like skimmed a little bit. So now you started getting all technical and talking about fights
Surface
and
level
whatnot.
knowledge.
I wanted to go into it. So... yeah, when he went down against Roy Jones in that first round, he was gone, right? But he had the powers of recovery, and he could get through that, and that's what makes him, do you know what I mean? Like, Froch was one of those as well. But
styles and fights, right? So I would suggest, in order to be entirely honest, that I would probably, at their pomp, suggest that Joe Calzaghe would shade it.
Be careful, because your new relationship with Carl.
I can't just sit here and not be entirely focused on the right answer rather than the popular answer that might get me more likes from Kyle.
Well,
I'm a huge admirer of Carl Froch, as you know I am. But if I was sitting in a different space, i.e. next to Carl, I would say probably a draw. But I think that, it'd be interesting to see, and maybe we'll ask him the question when he comes and does the show, Carl, if he does, what he would think of that matchup. Yeah. But I would think at the very best that Carl might get a draw out of that fight. But I think Joe Calzaghe was at such a...
It's a great fight, by the way.
It's a phenomenal
fight.
I mean, someone's going to... that would be a barn burner of a fight.
It's one of those fantasy fights that we'll all have an opinion, but no one will ever know.
But Owen, thanks for the question. I didn't much like it because it's now compromised my relationship with Carl. But you've got to be what you've got to be. All right, Spence, listen, we're getting a question here from Joe Shaw. Who do you think is the most underrated heavyweight of all time?
Interesting question.
He's going to go with Smoking Joe Frazier.
Well, no, because I don't think he was underrated, if I'm totally honest. I think he gained the respect, Smoking Joe, from, the trilogy that he had with Muhammad Ali. Well, some would say
because he didn't actually win the belt from Muhammad Ali, that he got it in a certain way.
Yeah, but underrated, he wasn't underrated. I think the most underrated heavyweight of all time, and I'm going back a little bit here, would be Floyd Patterson. And the reason I say Floyd Patterson, I'm going to give you... hold on, you're pulling faces, but you've not let me give the answer. Okay. And once I give you the answer, you're going to change. Right. So Floyd Patterson, I'll tell you why. A lot of things that people may not know about Floyd Patterson, actually, he was the youngest ever lineal world heavyweight champion. A lot of people talk about Mike Tyson being the youngest ever. He was. And
who did he beat to win the world title?
Actually,
Ingemar Yo Johnson.
Yeah, Ingemar Yo Johnson.
And he also had
Johansson. And he also had good wins over Henry Cooper.
Tommy Cooper. You don't even know, do you?
Henry Cooper.
No. I've won over. He's won me over. You're right.
But listen, that's my... Floyd Patterson's the most underrated heavyweight of all time.
All right, shall I tell you who I think it is?
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a couple of versions of it.
Go on.
I'm going to give you Larry Holmes because I think he was never given the credit that he was entitled to, because he followed on from an era that had so much involved with it. With
Why didn't
Ali.
I think of that?
I'm going to give Sonny Liston, because he was an absolute brawler.
Yeah, but
because of the stigma around Sonny Liston, because of Cassius Clay.
Did he take a dive in that fight?
Well, that is a different question. And tragically, his life ends in great tragedy by a drug overdose. But at the time, he was a beast. But I'll give you one that never won a world title that should have been recognised. Kenny Norton.
Kenny Norton, nice.
Kenny Norton.
I like that.
He was the one that everyone was frightened of.
I like that.
He was the one that everyone, even though he put Ali in hospital twice, didn't he?
Yeah.
So
Kenny Norton was a great fighter.
So Larry Holmes, because of the Eastern Assassin, as far as I was concerned,
so you tapped into that little era.
Well, he was just brilliant, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he was just brilliant. I mean, I've gone across two generations.
So you don't agree with me with Floyd Patterson then?
No, because I think if you look, I've read up on books on Floyd Patterson, and he was a
small heavyweight that
very small heavyweight,
beat some good
and
big
he was destroyed
heavyweights
by Sonny Liston.
Yeah, he was because
and he wasn't operating in a high level.
What I'm saying is, if you look at the top 20 list of greatest heavyweights of all time, he doesn't appear in a lot of them.
Because
he's underrated. Because he's underrated. But no, he was. I think that, if you look at his credentials and what he achieved,
I think you've got to respect that, Spence.
You got to respect that. And by the way, Sonny Liston, who did die of an overdose, was also scared of needles. So there's a big stigma around.
Oh,
how
I know.
He really died.
Have you seen the film? The documentary?
Yeah.
It's a great documentary.
It's an unbelievable.
It's a tragic documentary.
When
he turns up after winning the world heavyweight title to an empty airport.
Yeah.
Because they billed him as public enemy number one, as the person that no one would want to be anywhere near. And the disappointment and the sort of hardening of his heart after expecting to get off the plane with his wife and be given a civic reception, and there was no bugger there.
Yeah. And then when he lost, obviously, to Cassius Clay at the time, eyes over, shading himself, there was a big question mark on did he take the dive, and then shortly after, he was found dead in a hotel room with a needle in his arm, and he was... scared of needles.
Well, after about 3 days of just bloating up and taking on water. But there's also, of course, the unedifying spectacle that Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali would have you believe. That obviously there was stuff on the gloves, there was all kinds of stuff going on in the first fight. But Sonny Liston, you give me Mike Tyson, I'll give you Sonny Liston.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson gets greeted as an absolute legend of boxing.
Who wins out of Mike Tyson and Sonny Liston, by the way?
Oh, I don't know, mate. I don't know. That's
a good fight. That's a good fantasy fight,
isn't it? I mean,
he was a monster, Liston.
But I would say Tyson because he's so quick. He was so quick, wasn't he? I mean, Ali beat Liston because he was so quick.
Yeah. But did he beat him? Or did he take the dive?
Well, we'll never know.
Exactly.
Listed in history. Anyway, on to the next question. And I think this is probably more one for you than me, but we'll both have a go at it. This one is from Dan Graham. With amateur boxing in jeopardy for the Olympics, and hopefully that won't be the case. Hopefully they'll find a way to square that circle. And the rise of the MMA. What does the future of boxing look like in 10 years?
Very strong. Very strong. And I'm very confident about that. I'll
tell
you
in
why.
what they're saying, because they're talking about the
I
IOC are going to take boxing
taking
out.
boxing out of the Olympics.
So that means there's going to be if that's the case, there's going to be less of a pathway for amateur boxers to become elite fighters than to become pros.
Listen, I'm going to explain that. So basically, when you're an amateur boxer, your dream is, as an amateur boxer, not really to go to the Olympics or whatever else. When you're an amateur boxer, your dream is bigger than that. It's to become a world champion. So that's always the end, right? So the Olympics and everything else, that's the process you want to go through. And obviously, you go to the Olympics, you're going to get better money, turning professional, whatever. But the ultimate dream is to become world champion. So I pray that they don't take it out, but it looks likely that they are going to take it away because of the controversy around the scoring of the last Olympics, etc. And if they do take it away, I only go by what I know and what I see in amateur boxing gyms today. Like, the gym is polluted with kids, right? It's getting more. There's more kids in gyms now than there ever has been. So I just think that the sport is just growing phenomenally. Like, look at boxing now. It's a mainstream sport. You can't deny, like Michelle wants to go to boxing. Like, if you're going back 15 years, would she have wanted to go? Like Nicola? My Nicola wants to go to boxing now because it's an event. It's glamorous.
It's a spectacle.
It's glamorous.
Yeah. But those are we must remember, and you know this better than anyone, the big headline fights are not the staple diet. The small hall fights are the big part of boxing, and that's where
when you go York Hall, you go York Hall, and you have the best nights of boxing. Yeah, you watch it, and it's phenomenal. But that's for your hardcore boxing fan or whatever. Boxing now has become mainstream. It's gone out of that.
Yeah,
I look at how many kids are in the gyms. So the answer to the question is, I think boxing is going to go from strength to strength, and it won't lose its place to MMA.
I sincerely hope that this ridiculous notion that you need to take boxing out of the Olympics is squashed, because if it's not beyond the wit of man, find a solution to the corruption that's been going around,
Sure.
which is what it is, corruption, around scoring and judging. We've got the same situation in professional boxing, not to the level of corruption, but the level of dissatisfaction with certain scoring, you know, specifically and explicitly the Jack Catterall, Josh Taylor fights. And you've got people like Ben Shalom leading the charge for technology to become part of the equation. And if the British Boxing Board of No Control, sorry, Robert, British Boxing Board of Control.
Be careful, he's coming in a couple of weeks, by the way.
Yes, I shall be enlightened by him, I suspect, about all the things I've got wrong. And if there's an advancement, because losing boxing from the Olympics, mark my words, make no doubt about it, is a scandal. And it's a staple diet of the Olympics. It's one of the original disciplines, and it'll be a disgrace.
It'll be damaging to the Olympics as well. Like it's a major part of it. You know,
I'm in the same camp as you with the idea. I think there needs to be. We spoke last week about the zone, and people took my comments out of context. And a lot of people on Saturday were talking about me criticising Eddie Hearn and saying DAZN. No, I'm a subscriber of DAZN. I look at it. I think the content isn't good enough. It could be better. I think it's not bad, but it could be miles better. And I think there are more fights that need to be made on that platform. And more content that needs to be delivered. But people were saying I thought it was crap. I don't think it's great. And I think it could be better. And I think I did use the word crap, so I've got to be accountable for what I said. But my point in all of this is that the promoters and the broadcasters have got to keep evolving boxing, keep making sure that wherever you see it for its best possible window, that you do the things that you're talking about, which is the events are theatrical, they involve the next generation of boxing fans. MMA rows its own boat. So I don't worry for the future of boxing.
Do you think it's going to grow?
That's up to the people that are controlling the way boxing is. Yeah, I think you've got to have better governance to be able to ensure that the integrity of the sport is maintained, more fights being made in terms of the best fighters fighting one another, and that's the gift of the promoters. So I think it's incumbent upon the promoters and the broadcasters to keep ratcheting up the notch, to keep dialing it up, because you know football's one thing, boxing's another. But I don't worry about the I mean, I'm
well,
more
that's
excited.
Why you're coming into boxing.
Well,
right?
I'm more excited by boxing than I was ever about football. I love football. My father was a footballer. I bought the team that my father had played for, and I'd end up signing for. But there's something more about boxing that intrigues me. I get more engagement, more enjoyment, and more thrill from watching boxing, which means that people like me and other people will look at it from a different set of eyes and go, how do we evolve this? How do we make it bigger and better?
Would it be fair to say, though, like, with it being imminent that you're going to be coming into boxing sometime in the near future, that you would like to put change into the sport?
Of course.
Not just not just going on to the promotional side, but making change.
You've got to engender a tribalistic feel to boxing. Football thrives and survives on the fact that Everton are playing Liverpool, Manchester United playing Man City, and this spirit of engagement between people. And if you can build a sport that builds that tribalism, that doesn't just need Scousers to support Liam Smith and one individual fighter, you can build a team mentality. And that's where my thinking is coming into play, and we'll see what that looks like. Finally, last question. Liam Marley says, love the content, guys. That's kind, Liam. The question is Sonny Edwards, who we both like very much. South London boy. Keep on going, Sonny. But I think you're Chelsea
ticking
fan.
All the boxes for you.
You're a Chelsea fan, aren't you, Sonny? I'll do better there. Is Sonny Edwards getting the credit he deserves? What does he have to do to be up there in the appreciation charts?
Right, so Sonny Edwards won't get the credit that he deserves purely because of the weight category that he fights in. Right, because he's a flyweight and he's not a big puncher. So if you're a flyweight like Inoue Inoue, right, who is knocking everyone out, all of a sudden, boom, because that's what people ultimately likes, So because Sonny Edwards is for the boxing purist. He's an incredible boxer who's going to be very, very difficult to beat. But there's only a little niche market there for that, so he won't get the credit he deserves. But he's one of our best fighters.
Is he fighting for the right promoters?
Well, listen, I just think it's the style that is he's got one of those styles that. You're like if you're a boxing fan and you appreciate the fine art of boxing, you're going to appreciate Sonny Edwards. If you're a guy that's a casual and you want to go there, you want to see someone getting knocked out, you're not going to appreciate it. They go, oh, this is boring. So he taps into a small market, hence why he won't get the respect that he deserves.
I mean, he does get a lot of appreciation. He does get a lot of plaudits within inside the industry. He does get a lot of plaudits from people that appreciate boxing for what it is. He's never going to get, if we're talking about appreciation in terms of column inches, screen time and pay packets, you've just summed it up. The little guys don't get the big bucks and don't get the screen time. But that's not just unique to the little guys. You can talk about, it wasn't so long ago, Josh Taylor couldn't get a broadcaster to pick him up.
And he was a pound for pound star.
At one point being now billed as pound for pound.
Yeah,
obviously
absolutely.
the Jack Catterall result has probably tarnished him a little bit. But I personally think Sonny Edwards is a great watch. He's a great character. He's a great personality.
But you love your boxing. That's what I'm saying.
Fine. But then it's incumbent upon boxing to make sure that these guys get better opportunities, which is why I want the DAZNs of the world to work harder with what they're doing. Yeah. They're a new concept. They're a VOD platform, and the Lee Woods and the Sonny Edwards need more visibility. Yeah. Because what we're seeing is a closed shop.
I agree.
It basically goes, wow, did you see what Lee Wood did in that fight? Yeah. Wow, did you see what Sonny Edwards did out in Dubai? Yeah. And it needs to be broadened. And that's boxing's responsibility to make sure that it's given a more rounded perspective so everyone gets to hear what's going on in every single division. And each division and each star in that division is a star. We'll see. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for all the questions. Now, don't forget, of course, to keep leaving those questions in the comment section below. And myself and Spencer will see you next week on Talk Boxing, the Q&A.